Hello there, and welcome to a video. Well, tomorrow is the start of the NFL season, where we get all excited about our team, and then they disappoint us, except for probably one team. So, I'm excited for the NFL season, so I decided I'm going to make some predictions on the divisions, the awards, and who I think will win the Super Bowl this year. Now, let's just get this out of the way. Well, first of all, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, which, yeah, that might make me lose some credibility here, but let's just have some fun. And also, these predictions are no more than just educated guesses. I don't know more than you do. These are just my opinion. I look at every team's roster, some of the moves they made in the offseason, and kind of what's the vibe going into the year, and I decide whether or not I think, are people hyping them up, or are they being overlooked, or do I think they're just about right? I mean, these are no more than educated guesses. I mean, I'm not a professional, but I mean, even this is just my opinion. None of these are going to be right, none of these are going to be wrong, and I feel like, and again, there'll probably be that one team I'm wrong about and one team I'm probably right about, so this is just meant to be good fun, and don't take this list seriously. Well, again, it's just meant to be fun. So we're going to start over with my division, the NFC East. In fourth place, I have the Washington Commanders. Now, the Commanders did some stuff in the offseason. They hired, our DC, Dan Quinn. They brought in a few veterans like Bobby Wagner, Austin Eckler, and I think Dorrance Armstrong, a former Cowboy. They definitely made some moves, and with the second overall pick, they took Jaden Daniels, and they're hoping he can be their franchise quarterback. The reason I have them in fourth place is they won 4 games last year because, they really weren't that good of a team, and, I think they're better. I think Jaden Daniels could have some growing pains along the way, and I just don't think they're really that amazing of a team. I don't think they're terrible, and I don't think they'll be as bad as they were last year, but I don't see them coming anywhere higher than third or possibly fourth place. Coming in third place, I have the New York Giants. So the New York Giants in 2022, they had a surprise playoff appearance, and they had a very disappointing last year. And look, the main concern for the Giants is obviously their quarterback, Daniel Jones. And while Jones is by no means the worst quarterback in the world, and he's not as bad as some people like to make him out to be, he's definitely not what you would call a top-tier QB, and especially what the Giants are paying for him. Now, to Daniel Jones' defense, he's never had an elite receiver. Kenny Golladay didn't work out. Golden Tate was done. Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayer were good receivers, but not exactly game-chasing, and I think they're hoping Malik Neighbors can finally have Jones to break out of a mid-tier quarterback reputation. And I think their defense is, in my opinion, criminally underrated. Dexter Lawrence, they added Brian Thomas. I think their defense is really good, and they could be the team that upsets a few teams, but I think, again, they don't finish anywhere higher than third in their division. Coming in second place, I have the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, the Dallas Cowboys, they had a embarrassing playoff loss to the 7th-seeded Green Bay Packers. And Jerry Jones boasted about how they were going to go all in this season. The Cowboys really didn't do that much in the free agency. They let many of their players walk, including Tyron Smith, Dorrance Armstrong, Tony Pollard, even though Tony Pollard was overrated. Yes, Titan fans, remember that. Well, their big moves of the offseason were signing a long snapper, Eric Kendricks, and bringing back Zeke. Now, there was finally some good news. We finally got CeeDee Lamb locked up, which, that's one problem down. We still got to worry about Micah and, Dak is going to be interesting to see how that works out. But I still think the Cowboys are a dang good team. Do I think they're amazing? No. But I mean, look, Dak, say what you want about him, is, in my opinion, a top 10 quarterback. I mean, he finished second in MVP voting. And CeeDee Lamb is one of the best receivers in football, maybe the best receiver in football, you could say. And then Brandon Cooks, I think, is criminally underrated. Jake Ferguson's good. And their defense, now, I do have my worries about it. Deron Bland's going to be out for the first month of the year, so do feel like there could be some trouble in the secondary, so I'm a little concerned there. And then running back, I mean, Zeke, a running back with a lot of mileage, and Royce Freeman, Rico Dow, and Deuce Vaughn are really not the most inspiring options at running back. I think this team is still good, and I think can make the playoffs, but, this is not our year. If you just want to hear a Cowboy fan say, yep, I'm being honest right now. I don't think this team's going to win the Super Bowl. And in first place, we have in my equivalent the team equivalent to Satan, the Philadelphia Eagles. So, the Philadelphia Eagles, now, it feels like a lot of people have now forgotten, but they were only a couple plays away from winning the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not saying that to make Eagle fans feel pain. Well, I kinda am, but it is insane how quickly people are to forget stuff like that, because last year, Philadelphia, they got off to a 10-1 start and then absolutely fell apart. They finished with only 11 wins, and they lost in the wild card. You know, very frustrating end. And kind of, again, that season, it felt like that bad, disappointing season seemed to kind of overtake what was a great year 2 years ago. Now, there were a lot of problems with the Eagles last year that led to their collapse. The first one, obviously, being they lost both of their coordinators. They brought in some new coordinators, Vic Fangio, a veteran DC, and Kellen Moore. Now, what should be really good in Philadelphia? I hope not. To hopefully, bring back, and now their secondary, which was terrible, they definitely brought in some guys to fix it, so their defense should be better. And heck, they picked up Joey Doxson, which could be a nice, fun third receiver. Now, they did lose both Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox, which are kind of like, those are their veterans on both sides, so I'm kind of wondering to see how that affects it, and I'm a little worried. It is Philadelphia. They seem to be a very volatile franchise. Their fans and media expect the best out of them, and if they don't get that, it can get ugly. And, there's already reports about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni not getting along, so I'm a little worried about that. Could it possibly just be overblown? There's a chance it could be, but that does concern me, and it feels like this team, if a couple things go wrong, it can all fall apart, so that's my worry. But why do I have them at number 1 over Dallas? Well, in my opinion, Dallas got worse, and Philly, as much as I want to paint it, I think they got better, and if you want an honest ranking, if you put a gun to my head, I would probably pick Philadelphia. Okay, now that we're done with the NFC, so we're going to move to the NFC North. In fourth place in the NFC North, we have the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the Minnesota Vikings had a bit of an interesting year last year. They had a rough start, then they started to turn it around, then Kirk Cousins got hurt, and then Josh Dobbs came in. He played good, but then kind of fell off. They decided to kind of end the Kirk Cousins era, which, people act like he was terrible in Minnesota. He wasn't bad. They just didn't exactly have the success they wanted from him. And they decided to go get J.J. McCarthy in the draft. And, well, J.J. McCarthy ended up tearing his meniscus, and he's going to be out for the year. And it kind of felt like that let all the air out of the balloon for the Vikings. That kind of felt like that's what they had going for them. So, I'm worried. Now, Sam Darnold is not the worst QB you can have starting for you, but he's not going to lead you to the playoffs. And I think their defense with Dallas Turner could be interesting, but I think this team is just a fourth-place team, and I don't see a team with Sam Darnold doing anything good. And not that I have anything against Sam Darnold. He's just not a great QB. Yeah, that sounded mean. And in third place, I have the Chicago Bears. Now, the Chicago Bears, they started off the year really rough last year, and then they turned it around at the end. They finished the year with a 7-10 record. They traded for Montez Sweat, a move I questioned, but worked out. They were able to get him to an extension, so what do I know about being a GM? Last year, they made the big trade with the Panthers, which ended up getting them the number 1 overall pick, and they had Justin Fields, who, in my opinion, had shown that there was a potential and that he could be something, but it felt like maybe he was just never going to work in Chicago, so maybe that's why they moved on from him, and I think Fields is a tad overrated. Don't think he's bad, but I think he's a little overrated. They obviously got the number 1 overall pick. They used it to draft Caleb Williams, and they did a good job, in my opinion, of surrounding him with a supporting cast. They traded for Keenan Allen to give him a veteran wide receiver, and they drafted Rome Ozune, so you got him, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Ozune. That's a very good receiving core. So why do I have them in third place? And the answer is a few things. Number 1, I think there could be some growing pains along the way. While I think Caleb Williams will have a good rookie season, I wouldn't be shocked if he's a little up and down at times. And they have a lot of new pieces, and it could be, again, tough to get them all going, and I don't know. And the big thing is, I'm not yet sold on this coaching staff. Obviously, there's a lot riding on Matt Eberflus this year, and I've not seen enough in him to give him confidence. I know, and I feel like with how stacked some teams are in the NFC, I feel like they could lose some games that will hurt them in their playoff chance. Do I think the Bears are going to be bad? No, but I think they'll end up barely missing the playoffs. Coming in second place, I have the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Green Bay Packers, they made it as a 7th seed. They ended up playing the Dallas Cowboys in a game we're not going to talk about. And they went to San Francisco, in which they lost in the playoffs, which is, well, a tradition at this point. But they put up a really good fight. Now, the Packers, they brought in Josh Jacobs, so this offense could be really fun. And heck, Jordan Love could he be the, fourth Hall of Fame QB the Packers have had. So the Packers, I think, are a really good team. Their defense does concern. They did bring in a new DC, but I got my worries. But I think and their situation at kicker's been a little weird this year, so I got my worries with this team. I think they're good, and I think they'll make the playoffs, but I think they have a little ways to go. In first place, we have the Detroit Lions. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell completely turned around the culture in Detroit. They made it to the NFC Championship, where they were only a couple plays from possibly making it to the Super Bowl, and it ended in a pretty disappointing way. Now, the Lions are essentially running back the same team they did last year with Goff, Montgomery, and Brown, and their offensive line is homegrown, one of the best offensive lines in football, in my opinion. Their defense now was a little inconsistent at times, which is what I think cost them against San Francisco. So, again, they hopefully will be a little bit better this year. I really do like the Lions. I mean, they're essentially my number 2 team at this point, and I'm rooting for them to do good. I hope they do good, and I think they will do good. So I got the Lions finishing in first place. Next up, we have the NFC South, probably the worst division in football. In last place, I had the Carolina Panthers, and last year was a disaster for the Panthers. They won only 2 games. Frank Reich got fired mid-season. Bryce Young struggled because they had traded away their first-round pick to get Bryce Young. It ended up becoming the number 1 overall pick, so last year was rough. Now, they have a new coach in Dave Canales, and I feel like all you can hope for is that he can turn Bryce Young around. And while I don't think Bryce Young is a bust, you definitely need to start to see some progress to turn it around. And the receiving core should be better. They brought in Deontay Johnson. Eminem Thielen make for a solid receiving core. O-line is questionable, and their running game has got some worries. Now, I liked watching Jonathan Brooks, but he's coming off an ACL tear, and we've seen how brutal running backs can be with their decline. And their defense, they lost Brian Burns, and heck, they could have had 2 first-round picks for him, but whoopsie. So I just think this team is not... I mean, they're better than what they were last year. I mean, it's not hard to improve when you only won 2 games the year prior, but I think they're still one of the bottom-tier teams in football. Coming in third place, I have the New Orleans Saints. And the Saints, everyone kind of thought they were going to waltz their way to an easy playoff win. They brought in Derek Carr. And look, I like Derek Carr. I think he's a good quarterback. I think people are a little too harsh on him. But for whatever reason, they couldn't make the plays. Their offense was rough. And while Derek Carr was more of a problem than the problem, you obviously wanted, the reason they signed him was to make playoff appearances and make it deep, not to, well, be mediocre. This team isn't bad. Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara make for a solid offense. And their defense is not bad, but I just feel like this team just doesn't really excite me. And I feel like I have a lot of concerns with this team, and unless they prove me wrong, I have them finishing in third. Coming in second place, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No Tom Brady, no problem. They took in Baker Mayfield, who had a nice redemption arc last year. He got re-signed, and they brought back Mike Evans and Levante David. So, the Buccaneers had a good year, but I do have my worries. They only win it because the division was weak. I mean, 9 wins isn't not a 9-8 record doesn't exactly, in my opinion, scream Super Bowl team. And they also beat a Philadelphia Eagles team that was self-destructing in the playoffs, so I do have my concerns. And now, Baker Mayfield had a nice redemption arc, but is he going to be able to replicate that success? I really don't know. I think the Bucs could be a playoff team, but I really just feel like they made the playoffs last year because the division was terrible. And while I don't think they're a bad team, I just don't think they have enough. But winning the NFC South will be the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Atlanta Falcons, they went 7-10 last year. Arthur Smith was fired because he cost some fantasy owners a championship. And they brought in Raheem Morris. Now, Desmond Ridder sucked at QB, so they went and got Kirk Cousins. Now, Kirk Cousins is coming off a torn Achilles and is not getting much younger. So I am kind of worried about that. And they made a pretty head-scratching move in the draft to take Michael Penix over, let's say, Dallas Turner, when they probably could have used an edge rusher. You know, look, say what you want about Kirk Cousins, but he's probably the best QB in this division. Bijan Robinson will hopefully get his carries, and I picked him up in fantasy, so I need him to do good. Hopefully Drake London and Kyle Pitts will get involved. And their defense is not bad. They brought in Matthew Judon and Justin Simmons to help improve it, so I don't think they're a great team, and I think they're just going to win this division by default. Hey, someone's got to win, and I would say I think they got the best roster, even though I don't think they're that great. Next up, we have the NFC West. In last place, I have the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals were bad last year, and I think they'll be a little bit better this year. They're going to have Kyler Murray for the full season. They got Marvin Harrison Jr., so I think their offense will be a little bit better. I still think they have a couple ways to go, but I think there's some progress being shown, and I think there could be some good things going on there. Now, do I think the Cardinals are going to be a Super Bowl team in a few years? I have no idea, but I don't think they'll be as bad. And a lot of people seem to forget, they did have a few close games. They beat Philadelphia, which kept them from winning the NFC East. They even beat Dallas, and they had a few games that were close. So I think Arizona will, I don't think they'll be amazing, but I think they'll be a little better. I think in third place, I have the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks, to me, are the definition of a good, but not great team. Now, the Pete Carroll end came to an end. They brought in Mike McDonald, which is a hire I really did like. And there's some really good pieces on this team. Geno Smith is a good quarterback. Now, I don't think he's a quarterback you win championships with, and I do kind of wonder if they're going to move on from him after this season. The receiving core is really good. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith. And their defense, they have Devin Witherspoon, who had a great rookie season, looks to grow. So I think this team, I think they could maybe make the playoffs. Like, I wouldn't be shocked, but I just don't think they have enough. I don't think they'll be bad. I think this is a team that, if things go well with Mike McDonald, I think could be back to the Legion of Boom days, but I don't think this team will make the playoffs. Coming in second place, I have the LA Rams. So the Rams won a Super Bowl, then they sucked the next year, and then last year they had a very good season. Puka Nacua came out of nowhere just to become one of the league's best wide receivers. Kyron Williams was amazing. Cooper Kupp is amazing. This is a really good offense. Now, the worry I do have is, they lost probably their best player in franchise history, Aaron Donald, to retirement, which, sucks on many levels because I was an Aaron Donald fan. He was so much fun to watch. So it's a shame to see him gone. And I do kind of worry if the defense is going to maybe take a step back. Now, they drafted Jared Vest to hopefully be that replacement for Aaron Donald, and it's weird to think that the Rams actually had a first-round pick. I think the Rams can make the playoffs, and I think they're a really good team. Sean McVay has obviously got something good cooking down there. He obviously is a really good coach, and I trust what he can do in LA. But coming in first place, I have the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the 49ers have been probably the best team in the NFC for the last 5 years. They've made the NFC Championship all but 2020, and they've made the Super Bowl twice, in which, well, they've lost to Mahomes. Now, the Niners are in a bit of a tough situation. Now, the good news is they're close, but the bad news is also they're close. And unfortunately, they want to keep all the gang around, and it's led to some problems. Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams ended up holding out. They ended up getting that all sorted out because they seem like they know how to run the cap, unlike the Dallas Cowboys. And look, this team has still a very good team. Say what you want about Brock Purdy, but he is still a very good QB. Christian McCaffrey is arguably the best running back in football. Devo, Brandon Ayuk, and Juwan Jennings are a good receiving core. And heck, Ricky Pearsall, if he can make a full recovery, could be a fun offense addition. Hope he does make a recovery. Trent Williams is without a doubt the best O-lineman in football. And their defense has got some great pieces. Fred Warner and Nick Bosa are great leaders. And so I think the Niners are going to make the playoffs still. I think they'll win the division. Do have a little worries about some stuff, and but I think they're a good team. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch seem like they know what they're doing, so I think they'll make the playoffs. Well, they're going to finish first. Of course, they're going to make the playoffs. All right, so that's the NFC done. I'm going to tell you what 7 teams I think are going to make the playoffs. Number 1 will be the San Francisco 49ers. 2 will be the Detroit Lions. 3 will be the Philadelphia Eagles. 4 will be the Atlanta Falcons. Those are going to be your division winners. And then your wildcard teams, number 5 will be the Los Angeles Rams. 6 is going to be the Green Bay Packers. And 7 is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, I can't decide if I'm being harsh or honest by giving them that 7th prediction. All right, now that we're done with the NFC, we're going to move over to the AFC. And the AFC, I do think, is a little bit more competitive. So we're going to start again with the AFC East. In last place, we have the New England Patriots. It's a new era in New England. Bill Belichick is gone, and they brought in Gerard Mayo. And this team it's not that good. Receiving core is not great. They did bring in Drake May, but they're going to be going with Jacoby Brissett to start the year. I can see their defense being good. Christian Gonzalez is really good. I think, Gerard Mayo's a defensive guy, so I think they'll kind of build it out there. The Patriots, I don't think are good, which is kind of weird thinking because, they were the standard for the NFL for 20 years. I mean, back when I was growing up, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick set the standard of how to run an NFL team. But yeah, it's kind of weird to think how much they've fallen apart. So I think the Patriots are bad. I think they could possibly be, maybe with Carolina, one of the worst teams in football. But you never know. But yeah, I don't have high expectations for the Patriots this year, which is, again, weird to think. Okay, now in third place, we have the New York Jets, and I have no idea what to think of this team. So, the Jets brought in Aaron Rodgers, there was all the hype for them, and it lasted, well, 4 plays. Only to the Jets. This would happen to no other team it would happen to. And they had to roll out Zach Wilson again, and we all know Zach Wilson freaking sucks. Now, there seemed to be banking on that Aaron Rodgers can lead them to the playoffs. Now, there's a lot of pressure on the Jets. I think they're the team under the most pressure, because if they miss the playoffs or fall apart, there's going to be some jobs cost. Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, they're on the hot seat if they miss the playoffs. I think they're fired if they're gone. And now look, the Jets, their defense was really good last year, and they brought in Hassan Reddick, though who knows if he's actually going to play for them considering his contract situation. So I'm worried about that. And Aaron Rodgers is coming off a torn Achilles. He's going to be 40 years old, so I do, kind of have my worries. I just feel like with all the competition in the AFC, is it going to be enough? And I feel like they're going to come just short. So, I need to see the Jets play, and I'll believe it when I see them. I could see them being good, but until then, I have to put them in third place. In second place, I have the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Miami Dolphins have, the last 2 years under Mike McDaniel, they've had some really good offense. Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle make for a very fun offense. Now, defense a little sketchy. And also what's hurt them is their December collapses to end the year, which has hurt them in playoff positioning, which is why they've had some early playoff exits. Now, they brought in a lot of veterans to hopefully fix the defense. They did lose Christian Wilkins, but they brought in guys like Jordan Poyer, so I do have my worries with this team, however. And I feel like, again, they seem to be kind of volatile, and they definitely seem to, at times, to play either really good or really bad, so I am worried about this team. And in first place, I have the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Buffalo Bills have been really good. They've been making the playoffs every year, except there's one team that's been a little better than them, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. They just can't seem to beat them. They've lost them 3 times. 2 absolutely just gut-wrenching playoff losses. Heck, this one was pretty gut-wrenching as well. And, obviously the Bills got into a bit of a cap crunch, so they had to let go of a lot of pieces like Jordan Poyer and Tre'Davious White and Stephon Diggs, which I think that move kind of made sense for them as Diggs was not playing well. And now look, the Bills' receiving core is definitely downgrade, but I still think it's okay. Now look, their offense I think is still solid. Josh Allen is obviously one of the best QBs in football. Now, he does have a tendency to turn over the ball way too much, which is, I think, cost him a few games, but obviously there's a reason why he's one of the best playmakers in football. And their offense with Keon Coleman and Shaquille Collier, which I probably said his name wrong, and I apologize, I don't think makes a bad receiving core. Dalton Kincaid makes for a good tight end, so the receiving core I don't think is bad, and obviously they started relying more on the running game, mainly with James Cook, so I think they'll be kind of more of what we saw at the end of the year, and they definitely played a lot better like that, so that's why I'm giving the Bills the top seed, mainly because of that. So I think if they can do what they did to end the season, I think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think they're a dominant team, and I think this is going to be kind of a retool year, and I think that's kind of what they need to do, because next up, I have the AFC North. In last place, I have the Cleveland Browns. Now, I'll admit, this was maybe the toughest division to predict. Now, the Cleveland Browns last year had an amazing season. They made it to the playoffs with Joe Flacco, who was their number 5 QB. Even with Nick Chubb being hurt, their defense was amazing. Myles Garrett is amazing. Why do I have this team in 4th place? I have my concerns. Nick Chubb, he's going to be out to start the year, and he's coming off an ACL, and we've seen running backs can have really brutal declines, and I hope that doesn't happen, but I am worried. And then we get to quarterback, and look, Deshaun Watson, everyone hates him, everyone wants to watch him fail. He's an easy guy to hate on in the NFL, easy for everyone to unite around. And real truth is, Deshaun Watson hasn't exactly played like his Houston Texans form that the Browns won, and they need that, and I feel like we're yet to see it. And like I said, yes, it's easy to root against the guy, but I need to see more to give them higher than 4th place. And I feel like some other teams in that division have better situations at QB, and I think are better off. In 3rd place, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I actually considered giving them in 4th place, but for whatever reason, it's Mike Tomlin. They'll somehow waltz their way to 9 wins. Now, the Steelers, Kenny Pickett obviously just wasn't working out, so they made some big risky moves and brought in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. They're obviously going to go with Russ to start the year, which I think is the right call. Now, who knows? Maybe Russ just needs a change of scenery. It's obviously not Mr. Unlimited, Danger Russ. And that Justin Fields, maybe if they can develop him right, could maybe live up to the hype that I think some people have in him. And heck, their defense is amazing with TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Alex Highsmith. I mean, this defense is legit. So, I think they'll somehow make it to at least 9 wins because it's the Steelers. What else do they do? But I don't think this team is really that good. In second place, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Bengals had a very rough season. They had the rough start to the year. Joe Burrow was dealing with an injury. Then they started to turn it around. Then Joe Burrow was out for the year. Now, the good news is they are going to have Joe Burrow healthy for the year. And look, now the worry's been their O-line. They've been doing everything to get it right. It's been tough. They brought in Trent Brown to hopefully make it better. Hopefully he doesn't turn out like the last few guys because they need Joe Burrow healthy to make the playoffs. And while Jake Browning did good, I don't think he's exactly a franchise QB. They also did have to let go of some pieces like Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon, but I think with a healthy Joe Burrow, they should be able to finish second in their division. Coming in first place, I have the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the Ravens were the number 1 seed last year. They were the best team in football last year. They made it to the AFC Championship game and had a very disappointing performance. Now, Lamar Jackson has won MVP, and look, I expect Lamar Jackson to have another really good year. They run Derrick Henry, so their rushing game should be really good. The receiving core of Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, and Rashad Bateman are really good, and their defense, now they did lose Patrick Queen, but I expect it to be good. Kyle Hamilton and Marlon Humphrey and a few other guys who I'm probably forgetting about will definitely do good. I think the Ravens are a good team, and I think they'll win the division. Okay, now to the AFC South. In last place, I have the Tennessee Titans, and the Titans did make some moves. They brought in guys like Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, Tony Pollard, and they're definitely not a bad team in my opinion, but I also feel like they're bringing in a lot of guys. Like Jamal Adams hasn't exactly been that productive the last few years, and Calvin Ridley was kind of a disappointment in Jacksonville, and DeAndre Hopkins, I kind of feel like he's a bit on the decline. He's getting old and injured, so I feel like we're seeing the decline of him. And I'm just not sold on Will Levis. Now, Will Levis, I think, did enough to earn himself a full season as a starter, but I don't know. He feels a lot like a Davis Mills or a Sam Howell. Like, they played well enough to give them maybe a full season shot, but I'm just not buying it, and I just don't think the Titans are really that good. In third place, I have the Indianapolis Colts, and the Colts had a weird year. They got Anthony Richardson, who ended up getting hurt. They were very close to making the playoffs with Gardner Minshew. They were probably this drop pass away from making it, but now they're going to have Anthony Richardson, which is kind of my worry. Now, Anthony Richardson looked really good, but I do kind of worry our defense is going to be able now to figure him out, and is this playing style going to lead to him getting injured? I do have my concerns with that. Now, Jonathan Taylor is an amazing running back. The receiving core is kind of mid. Michael Pittman's good, but he doesn't exactly jump off the page. And I think their defense, which was solid last year, will be good. I just don't know about this team. I could see them maybe making the playoffs, but I wouldn't be shocked if they disappointed. I feel like they're a team, again, like the Jets, I need to see them play to know what I'm getting. In second place, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jaguars had a very rough way to end the season. They lost 5 of their final 6. Trevor Lawrence got hurt, and it definitely seemed to hurt his play. And the Jags, I think, are looking to bounce back from that. They brought in Brian Thomas to hopefully give Lawrence one more target to throw to, and they did give Lawrence an extension, even though it's not a hot take to say he hasn't exactly lived up to the hype we think, but there's obviously something there in Trevor Lawrence. I think, and their defense, they paid Josh Allen because they needed to. He's the reason that defense exists. I think barring another collapse, I think Jacksonville shouldn't finish lower than second. But in first place, I have the Houston Texans. Now, the Houston Texans were the surprise story last year. CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans completely turned this team around. They made the playoffs, destroyed the Browns in the wild card game, lost to the Ravens, had a very good season, and they went big. Obviously, they took advantage of their quarterback being on a rookie deal. They brought in guys like Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, and Danielle Hunter to make this team possibly even better. This could possibly be the best Texans team ever. Throw in Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, Tank Dell, and Will Anderson and Derek Stingley. Like I said, this could possibly be the best Texans team ever. Now, I do have a little bit of a worry. They were a dropped past Colts away from possibly missing the playoffs. And we've seen some teams that get a lot of hype, like 2019 Browns is an example that people hype up and they disappoint. But I really like D'Amico Ryans and trust the culture he's made there. And I like watching CJ Stroud play because I'm on my fantasy team and I need him to play well this year. So I think the Texans will be number one. And if things go well, they could possibly be one of the best teams in the AFC. Next up, we have the AFC West, which was actually the easiest prediction to predict. I know, shocking. In last place, we have Broncos Country. Let's ride. Now, the Denver Broncos, after the Russell Wilson era turned out to be a disappointment, they've decided to press the starting over button and brought in Bo Nix, who Sean Payton hopes to develop. Now, Bo Nix looked really good in preseason, though I don't put a lot of weight on preseason, but it did enough to earn him the starting job. I think this is obviously going to be kind of the secret we got out of Bo Nix and a few other guys. I think it's a bit of a rebuild in Denver, and, well, let's see if this works out unlike, well, the last few QBs they've trot out. In third place, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the Raiders have an interesting team. There's some pieces on here. Davante Adams, not a bad receiver. Max Crosby, one of the best defensive players. Christian Wilkins was a cool bring-in. They brought in Brock Bowers. This is not a bad team, and they played really good under Antonio Pierce. And then, their quarterback, they have AOC. Not that one. This one. And Gardner Minshew, who did win the starting job. Now, Gardner Minshew's not a bad QB, and I think he could possibly, the Raiders, I think, could be a dark horse playoff team. Now, do I think they'll make it? Not really, but I wouldn't be shocked if they did. Now, Davante Adams, I don't know if we're just counting down the days until he joins the Jets, which I do feel like will happen, but hey, if he stays, maybe this team could be a surprise team. At number 2, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. After the Brandon Staley era ended in disappointment, their big move of the offseason was a head coach. They brought in Jim Harbaugh, who they think will finally be the coach to lead the Chargers to greatness. Now, I like Jim Harbaugh, and I think he'll do a really good job in Los Angeles. Now, they're in a bit of a cap situation, which had to let them get rid of guys like Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. But I really like what they did in the draft. I liked what they did with Joe Alt and Ladd McConkey. I thought was a really cool pickup. And I really do trust Harbaugh with their run the ground game with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. I think this team could be a surprise playoff team. I don't know if they're going to make it, but Jim Harbaugh has obviously shown it doesn't take him that long to turn teams around, and I think the Chargers could be a surprise playoff team. But coming in first place, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. I really fooled you there. I know, I'm shocked too, this team.
You can't keep getting away with it! He can't keep getting away with it! He won't.
So the Kansas City Chiefs have won back-to-back Super Bowls, and they probably got even better. So last year, their defense was really good, and their offense, by Mahomes and Reed standards, was below average. Obviously, they weren't great at receiver, and it got better. Rashid Rice, Travis Kelce, they brought in Xavier Worthy. Yes, he had to go there of all places. They brought back Juju. Travis Kelce's really good, and they also are going to have Taylor Swift for the full season, which could actually help them. Now, their defense, which was really good, I think could take a bit of a step back, especially with Ladarius Sneed being gone. So, but it's the Chiefs. If they miss the only way they miss the playoffs is if Mahomes gets hurt or the team playing crashes. This team is really good. They're going for three-peat, and the worst thing is I think they could do it. All right, the AFC. Number 1, I have the Kansas City Chiefs, unfortunately. Number 2, I have the Houston Texans. 3, I have the Baltimore Ravens. 4, I have the Buffalo Bills. Those are the division winners. And then the wild cards in the AFC will be number 5, the Cincinnati Bengals. 6, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And 7, the Miami Dolphins. All right, let's get the awards done. For Coach of the Year, I'm going with Dan Campbell. We all love Dan Campbell. He's going to win it this year, and he's going to bite some kneecaps off as he leads the Lions to another great season. Comeback Player of the Year? I decided to just go with Joe Burrow. I think he'll lead the Bengals to the playoffs, and he's a really good QB, so I think he'll win it. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go with Dallas Turner. He feels like a lot like Will Anderson. I think will be the bright spot in what will probably be a rough Vikings season. Offensive Rookie of the Year is Caleb Williams. Well, I think he could have some growing pains. I think Caleb will still have a very good rookie season. And I think you'll definitely see that there's a lot of potential with him. And for Defensive Player of the Year, as much as I want to go with my boy Micah, I'm actually going to go with Max Crosby. He's been really good the last few years. He made a really good run in it last year, and I think this year is going to be the year in which he takes it home. For Offensive Player of the Year, I'm going to go with Tyreek Hill. He was voted as the best player in the NFL by his peers for a reason. Yeah, that list was stupid, but hey, Tyreek Hill's fast, explosive. Who's to say he won't win it? And then for MVP, I'm going to go with CJ Stroud. I'm going to have a little bit of fun here with CJ Stroud. I think he can win MVP. He was very good his rookie season, and I think he could be even better, especially with the additions they have. So we're going to give CJ Stroud. All right, for the Super Bowl, representing the AFC is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, I know, you're disappointed. But representing the NFC is going to be the Detroit Lions. And do you think I made you watch this video just so I can predict the Chiefs three-peat? No, that's boring. You don't want that. You don't want to see Mahomes get another ring. You don't want to see Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift celebrate. Of course you don't. So that's why it's going to be the Detroit Lions. Yes, that is right. The Detroit Lions are going to win the Super Bowl. Dan Campbell is going to bite kneecaps off, and the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl. Yes, book it right here. It's happening. You believe in Detroit? Don't stop believing. It's by a journey. It's about a boy born and raised in South Detroit. Yes, the Lions are going to win it. And I know what you're thinking. You don't actually think the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl. You just picked them because it's fun and different. And the answer is yes. But the Lions are actually going to win the Super Bowl. And when they win it, it's going to be a party in Detroit. Detroit's going to have the best experience of their life since General Motors was something. The Lions are going to win. And we're going to bite some kneecaps off in celebration. So that's it. Your 2024 Super Bowl champion will be the Detroit Lions. Thank you so much for watching this video. Goodbye.